That's a nice bra, sweetheart. What is that? Victoria's Secret Tactical Edition? The words sliced through the equipment hanger like a knife. Maya Reeves' hands froze mid-fold on the parachute silk. Every operator in the building turned to watch. Gunnery Sergeant Vandenberg stood behind her, 6 Rangers flanking him, all of them waiting for her to break, to cry, to prove she didn't belong. Her jaw tightened. Her breathing stayed steady. She didn't turn around, didn't speak, just kept folding the parachute with surgical precision while her silence screamed what her voice wouldn't. Try harder. Vandenberg's smile died. He'd just made a fatal mistake. Before we begin, if you appreciate stories of courage overcoming prejudice, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with us until the very end. This story will surprise you. And comment below with the city you're watching from so we can see how far Maya's story travels. Now, let's begin. 24 hours earlier, Maya had fallen from the sky with the grace of someone who belonged there. 25,000 feet. The air at that altitude wasn't air. It was a substance so thin and cold it burned the lungs like ice water. Maya's oxygen mask fogged with each controlled breath as she exited the C-130. Her body immediately caught in the violent slipstream. Around her, 12 other jumpers tumbled into the gray dawn, dark shapes against darker clouds. She counted to 3, pulled her ripcord, felt the violent jerk as the parachute deployed, the sudden shift from freefall to controlled descent. Below, the drop zone was a brown square carved into the California desert, marked with orange panels that looked like postage stamps from this height. Maya checked her altimeter, adjusted her toggles. The wind was pushing everyone east. She could see the other jumpers drifting, fighting the crosswind with varying degrees of success. She didn't fight it. She used it, making micro-adjustments that looked effortless, but represented thousands of hours of training. She landed in the center of the target circle. 10 meters. Perfect. The closest jumper, an Army Ranger trainee, hit 30 meters out and stumbled on landing. Another overshot entirely, landing 45 meters beyond the zone. By the time the last jumper touched down, 50 meters off target, Maya had already detached her harness, bundled her chute, and was standing at parade rest, waiting. The jump master, a leathery Navy chief with 26 years of service, checked his clipboard. "Reeves, center mass, good jump." "Thank you, Chief." "Don't thank me, you earned it." He raised his voice. "The rest of you girls might want to watch how Petty Officer Reeves packs her chute. Clearly she's doing something right." Maya felt the stares. She'd felt them for 5 years, since she became the 3rd woman to graduate SEAL qualification training, the 2nd to earn her trident, the 1st to deploy to a combat zone in her rating. The stares used to bother her. Now they were just background noise. What she didn't see was Gunnery Sergeant Rick Vandenberg watching from the observation tower, his face hardening as he witnessed her perfect jump. What she didn't hear was his comment to the Ranger instructor beside him. "Diversity hire got lucky with the wind." The hangar afterward was organized chaos. 18 jumpers, 18 parachute rigs, 300 square feet of silk per rig, all needing to be meticulously inspected, repacked, and stored. Maya found an empty spot near the back wall, tactically sound, good sightlines, solid surface behind her, and began her post-jump routine. She worked methodically. Check the canopy for tears. Inspect the lines for fraying. Examine the connector links for stress fractures. Every movement was precise, economical. She'd learned early in her career that wasted motion was wasted energy, and wasted energy could kill you. She was 40 minutes into the process, bent at the waist, folding the panels in the prescribed accordion pattern, when she heard the boots approaching. Heavy, confident, multiple pairs. "Well, well," The voice was deep, carrying the particular cadence of someone who expected to be heard. "Look what we have here." Maya didn't look up. She'd learned that, too. Responding to provocation was giving away power. "That's a nice bra, sweetheart." The voice was closer now, directly behind her. "What is that? Victoria's Secret Tactical Edition?" The laughter was immediate, loud, performative. 6 male voices, maybe 7, each trying to show appreciation for their leader's wit. Maya's hands continued their work. Fold, tuck, smooth. Her sports bra was visible. She'd removed her blouse because the hanger was hot and the work was physical. Standard procedure. Authorized uniform modification for training environments. She was wearing the same thing half the male jumpers were wearing. Tan undershirt or bare chest under their harnesses. But she was different. And different, in their eyes, meant inferior. "Hey," the voice sharpened. "I'm talking to you." Maya finished the fold she was working on, placed her hands flat on the silk, took a breath. Then she straightened and turned. Gunnery Sergeant Rick Vandenberg was exactly what Central Casting would send if you ordered generic Special Operations Instructor. 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle, granite jaw, crew cut, pale blue eyes that probably looked intimidating to recruits. Behind him, 6 Army Ranger candidates stood in a loose semicircle, all wearing identical smirks. Maya met Vandenberg's eyes, said nothing. "You deaf, sweetheart?" "I heard you, Gunnery Sergeant." "Then why didn't you answer?" "You didn't ask a question." "You made a comment about my undergarment. I didn't realize it required a response." One of the Rangers snorted, then quickly covered it with a cough. Vandenberg's jaw tightened. "You got a smart mouth, petty officer." "No, Gunnery Sergeant. I have a professional demeanor and a parachute to pack. If you'll excuse me." She turned back to her work. She heard Vandenberg's breath catch, the small sound of a man unused to being dismissed. For a long moment, silence. Then boots on concrete, walking away. Low male laughter, a comment she couldn't quite hear, followed by more laughter. Maya's hands didn't shake. Her breathing didn't change. But something had begun. She could feel it the way animals feel earthquakes before they happen. A vibration in the ground, too subtle for instruments but unmistakable to instinct. This wasn't over. That night, in the female officers' barracks, a converted storage building that housed exactly 4 women on a base of 800 personnel, Maya debriefed with her roommate, Lieutenant Jessica Park, a Navy helicopter pilot. "Vandenberg's crew?" Jessica asked, sitting cross-legged on her bunk. "Yeah, they've got a reputation. He runs the Ranger contingent for the Joint Training Program. Word is he thinks women in combat roles are political theater." "Most of them think that." "Yeah, but most of them have the sense to keep it quiet. Vandenberg's old school. Says what he thinks, damn the consequences. His Rangers worship him. 2 deployments to Afghanistan, Silver Star, Purple Heart. He's the real deal, which makes him dangerous." Maya pulled her boots off, examining a blister forming on her heel. "Dangerous how?" "Because competent sexists are worse than incompetent ones. Incompetent ones you can beat by being better. Competent ones you have to beat, and they'll move the goalpost every time you do." "Sounds like experience talking." Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I've been flying for 6 years. I'm better than 70% of the male pilots in my squadron. My fitness scores are higher, my flight reviews are cleaner. And you know what I still hear? Women don't have the upper body strength for combat aviation. Because apparently pulling a cyclic stick requires a penis." Maya laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Chief Hunt told me something when I graduated BUD/S. He said, 'You're going to spend your entire career proving you deserve to be here. It's not fair. It's not right, but it's reality. So get comfortable with it, or get out. Did you? Did I what? Get comfortable with it. Maya was quiet for a moment, staring at the ceiling. No, but I got functional with it. There's a difference. She didn't sleep well that night. She rarely did. Her dreams were full of water. Cold training pool water, warm Middle Eastern ocean water, the waters of a dozen countries where she'd deployed. In her dreams, she was always drowning, and the hands pulling her under always belonged to men who were supposed to be her brothers. The harassment escalated over the next 3 days. Day 1. Maya was running morning PT, a 6-mile loop around the base perimeter, when Vandenberg's Rangers fell in beside her. They didn't speak to her. They spoke about her, loud enough to ensure she heard every word. Think she actually passed the same standards? No way. They lowered the bar. Had to. I heard they gave her extra time on the underwater knot tying. Affirmative action SEAL. That's a first. Maya increased her pace. They matched her. She increased again. They stayed with her, their longer legs making it easy to keep up, even as her lungs began to burn. She finished the run in 41 minutes, well under the required time. The Rangers finished 10 seconds behind her. As they walked through the cool-down, one of them, a corporal named Davis, jogged up beside her. Hey, no hard feelings, right? Just guy talk. You know how it is. Maya stopped walking, looked at him. No, Corporal. I don't know how it is. Explain it to me. Davis's smile faltered. It's just, we were just blowing off steam. Training's hard, you know? Is it? I hadn't noticed. She walked away, leaving him standing there. Day 2. The shower incident. The female facilities were clearly marked, a laminated sign on the door reading, "Female personnel only," in 2-inch letters. Maya was alone, finishing a post-workout shower, when the door opened. Footsteps. Heavy. Male. Oh, shit, sorry. Didn't see the sign. Maya grabbed her towel, wrapped it around herself, and stepped out of the stall. Vandenberg was standing in the doorway, making no move to leave. His eyes traveled slowly from her feet to her face. Gunnery Sergeant, this is the female facility. You need to leave. Like I said, didn't see the sign. These old eyes, you know? He smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. Might want to lock the door if you want privacy. The door doesn't lock, and even if it did, that's not an invitation to enter. Didn't say it was, Petty Officer. Just making a safety observation. You never know who might walk in. Could be embarrassing. He let that hang in the air for a 3 count, then slowly backed out. Maya stood there, water dripping from her hair, rage building in her chest like a pressure wave. She wanted to scream. She wanted to follow him out and file a formal complaint. She wanted to put her fist through the tile wall. Instead, she finished drying off, got dressed, and went to find Chief Petty Officer Marcus Hunt. Hunt was in the armory, inspecting weapons. He was 48, built like a fire hydrant, with skin the color of worn leather, and eyes that had seen things he'd never talk about. He'd been Maya's instructor during her second phase of BUD/S training. He'd also been the only instructor who never once mentioned her gender, not as a positive, not as a negative. She was just another trainee who either met the standard or didn't. Chief, I need advice. Hunt looked up from the M4 he was field stripping. Vandenberg? She shouldn't have been surprised, he already knew. The Spec Ops community was small. Information traveled faster than radio waves. He's creating a hostile environment. Comments about my appearance, entering female facilities, encouraging his Rangers to question my qualifications. It's textbook harassment. It is. So I should file a formal complaint? Hunt put down the bolt carrier group he was inspecting. You could. You'd be within your rights. The investigation would take 6 months. During those 6 months, you'd be under a microscope. Every mistake, every subpar performance, every moment of human weakness would be documented and used to suggest you filed the complaint to cover for your own inadequacies. Even if you're exonerated, which you would be because Vandenberg's too stupid to cover his tracks, you'd be labeled. The SEAL who couldn't handle guy talk, the woman who needs special protection. That's not fair. No, it's not, but you asked for advice, not validation of what's fair. Hunt's eyes were steady. Here's what I know. Vandenberg's trying to bait you into an emotional response. He wants you to file a complaint, or yell at him, or do something he can point to as proof that women are too emotional for this work. He's not creative. He's running the same playbook they've used on every woman who's ever tried to break into this community. So what do I do? You out-professional him. You be so good at your job that his bias becomes background noise. You document everything, not for a complaint now, but for insurance later. And you wait for him to make a mistake big enough that the command has to act, whether they want to or not. Maya felt something settle in her chest, not comfort, but clarity. That could take months. Could take years. Question is, can you last that long? She thought about the water in her dreams, the hands pulling her under. I've lasted this long. Hunt nodded. Then you'll last longer. Day 3. The Missal. Dining facilities are ecosystems. Every military base has unwritten rules about who sits where, who eats with whom, which tables are reserved by tradition for which units. The Missal at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center was no exception. Maya collected her food, grilled chicken, brown rice, steamed vegetables, black coffee, and headed for her usual table in the back corner. Good sightlines, solid wall, away from the main traffic flow. She was 3 bites into her meal when the volume in the room dropped noticeably. She looked up. Vandenberg and his 6 Rangers had entered. They moved as a pack, loud and aggressive, their presence designed to dominate the space. They loaded their trays with industrial quantities of food. These were men who took pride in consuming massive amounts of protein, and found a table dead center in the room. Vandenberg sat facing Maya's direction. Coincidence was unlikely. For 10 minutes, she ate in peace. Then the stage whispers started. The lady SEAL. The emphasis on lady was pure contempt. Wonder if she actually qualified, or if they just gave her a pass. Laughter. Not quiet laughter, performative laughter designed to carry. Maya cut her chicken into precise, identical pieces. I heard they lowered the run times for her class. Lowered the run times, the swim times, the obstacle course times, everything. Gotta hit those diversity quotas, man. That's the new military. More laughter. Maya chewed slowly, methodically. Her heart rate was 58 beats per minute. Her breathing was controlled. She was a stone in a river. Hey, Vandenberg, didn't you say you could outswim any SEAL? Any male SEAL, yeah. What about the lady version? Vandenberg's voice dropped into a thoughtful register, the tone of a man pretending to consider a serious question. Well, I don't know. They get those special waivers, you know, political considerations. Not sure we're comparing apples to apples. The implication hung in the air like smoke. She hadn't earned her place. She was a product of politics, not merit. Maya finished her chicken, put down her fork and knife with precise, soundless movements, stood, picked up her tray. The room watched. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone was waiting to see how she'd respond. She walked to the dish station, scraped her plate, racked her tray, and walked out. She didn't look at Vandenberg, didn't acknowledge his existence. Behind her, she heard someone say, "See? Can't even handle a little trash talk." But someone else, a voice she didn't recognize, said quietly, Or she's smart enough not to take the bait. The explosion came on day 4, during the joint training briefing. Commander Richard Chen, no relation to Corporal Chen from Vandenberg's unit, stood at the front of the briefing room with a PowerPoint presentation displaying the week's training schedule. 40 operators sat in folding chairs. SEALs, Rangers, Marine Force Recon, Air Force Pararescue. Joint training was designed to build interoperability between special operations units. "All right, listen up," Chen said. "This week's focus is close quarters battle. We'll be running scenarios in the shoot house, multi-floor, multiple rooms, hostage rescue simulations. You'll be working in mixed teams. The goal is to learn each other's tactical procedures and communication protocols." He clicked to the next slide. Team assignments. Team 1, Master Chief Hunt, Staff Sergeant Vandenberg, Petty Officer Reeves. "Commander," Vandenberg's voice cut through the briefing like a chainsaw. "Request to speak, sir." Chen frowned. "Go ahead, Gunnery Sergeant." Vandenberg stood. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't think this is an optimal team composition." "Explain." "My Rangers train extensively in CQB. We have established procedures, established communication protocols. Introducing an unknown variable," he paused, letting his eyes flick toward Maya, "could compromise the exercise." The room went very quiet. Everyone understood what unknown variable meant. Chen's frown deepened. Petty Officer Reeves is a fully qualified SEAL with 2 combat deployments. I'm not sure how she qualifies as an unknown variable. "I'm not questioning her qualifications on paper, sir. I'm questioning her team cohesion experience. My understanding is that she's primarily worked in intelligence support roles during her deployments, not direct action." It was a lie. A bold, easily disprovable lie. Maya had been door kicker on both her deployments. First through the door on more than a dozen compound raids, but Vandenberg was gambling that Chen didn't have her full service record memorized. He was wrong. "Actually, Gunnery Sergeant, Petty Officer Reeves was primary breacher on her last deployment. Her performance reviews specifically cite her proficiency in close quarters combat. I have those reviews here, if you'd like me to read them aloud." Vandenberg's face reddened slightly. "That won't be necessary, sir. But I maintain my concern about team cohesion. These exercises are dangerous even in controlled conditions. Adding someone my team hasn't worked with before increases risk." Chen set down his briefing notes. When he spoke, his voice was cold. "Let me be clear, Gunnery Sergeant. This is a joint training program. The entire point is to work with people you haven't worked with before. If you're unwilling or unable to adapt to working with other special operations personnel, regardless of their service branch or," he paused meaningfully, "any other characteristic, then perhaps you should reconsider your participation in this program." It was a verbal slap delivered with surgical precision. Vandenberg's jaw clenched so hard Maya could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. "Understood, sir. No further concerns." "Good. As I was saying, Team 1 will run the first scenario at 0900 tomorrow. Team 2... But Maya wasn't listening anymore. She was watching Vandenberg, watching the rage build behind his eyes like a thunderstorm gathering strength. She'd just witnessed his authority questioned in front of his men, his bias called out in front of 40 operators. He'd been publicly corrected, publicly humiliated. And men like Vandenberg didn't forgive humiliation. After the briefing, Chief Hunt caught up with Maya in the hallway. "That was bad," he said, without preamble. "Chen shut him down. That's good, isn't it?" "In the short term, yes. Long term?" Hunt shook his head. "You just became personal for Vandenberg. Before, you were an abstract enemy. Women and spec ops, political correctness, the changing military. Now you're the specific person who got him called out in front of his rangers. That's worse. What do you think you'll do? I don't know. But watch your six tomorrow. Men with wounded egos make bad decisions. Hunt's warning echoed in Maya's head that night as she lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She'd faced enemy combatants in 3 countries. She'd been shot at, mortared, nearly blown up by an IED. She'd kept her cool through all of it. But this was different. The enemy wore the same uniform she did. The battlefield was her own workplace, and the weapon being used against her wasn't bullets. It was something far harder to defend against. Bias wrapped in professional concern, harassment disguised as jokes, sabotage presented as legitimate performance questions. She finally fell asleep around 0300 and dreamed of drowning again. But this time, when she looked up through the water at the hands holding her under, they were wearing American flag patches. The shoot house loomed against the dawn sky like a concrete monument to controlled violence. 3 stories, 40 rooms, hundreds of possible scenarios. It was where operators learned to move through buildings like smoke, silent, deadly, decisive. Maya arrived at 0830, giving herself time to check her gear. Loaded magazines, radio check, medical kit, breaching tools. Everything was in order. Vandenberg arrived at 0845 with his 6 rangers. They moved past her without acknowledgement, began their own gear checks. The tension was thick enough to choke on. At 0900 sharp, Commander Chen arrived with the training cadre, instructors who would observe, evaluate, and control the scenario. He gathered the team. All right, here's your situation. Multiple hostiles have taken over a residential building. Unknown number of non-combatants inside. Your mission is to clear the structure, neutralize all hostile targets, and secure any civilians. You'll be judged on speed, accuracy, communication, and team coordination. Questions? Vandenberg raised his hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Standard ROE. Positive identification before engagement. No shots on non-combatants. Simunition rounds only. They'll hurt if you get hit, but they won't kill you. Targets are both static and interactive. Some will be role players, some will be pop-up silhouettes. Treat everything as real. Understood, sir. Suggested entry plan. I'll take point with my rangers. Reeves can provide rear security and negative. Chen interrupted. This is a joint exercise. You'll integrate your team. Reeves, what's your CQB specialty? Maya didn't hesitate. Breaching and room clearing, sir. I can run point. She heard one of the rangers snort, pretended not to. Vandenberg's eyes narrowed. Commander, with respect, point position requires someone the team trusts, someone they've worked with before. Then this is an excellent opportunity to build that trust, Chen said flatly. Reeves runs point. You have tactical command overall, but she leads the entry. That's an order. Maya saw Vandenberg's hands curl into fists, then slowly release. Aye, sir. Chen looked at his watch. You have 5 minutes to plan. Then you go. The planning session was a masterclass in passive-aggressive undermining. Vandenberg spread the building schematic on a table. All right, listen up. Standard diamond formation. I'll call targets, you execute. Simple. Shouldn't we establish hand signals? Maya asked. Radio comms might be compromised inside. My rangers know hand signals. I'm sure they do, but we should establish which signals we're using, since different units sometimes use different— We don't have time for a linguistics seminar, petty officer. Stay close, do what I say, we'll be fine. One of the rangers, a corporal, spoke up. Sarge, she's got a point. We should at least— Did I ask for your input, Davis? No, Sarge. Then shut it. Vandenberg looked at Maya. You want to run point? Fine. You go through the door first. We'll cover you. Try not to shoot any civilians." The implication was clear. He expected her to fail, was maybe even hoping for it. Maya studied the schematic. 3 floors, unknown hostiles, unknown civilians, multiple entry points. She traced a possible route with her finger. Through the ground floor, clear bottom to top, minimize backtracking. "What if we split into 2 elements?" she suggested. "Clear faster, maintain better coverage." "What if we follow standard procedures that have worked for the last 20 years?" Vandenberg countered. "1 team, 1 entry point, 1 direction. Keep it simple." Simple isn't always optimal. And complicated isn't always smart. He folded up the schematic. "We're doing it my way. You got a problem with that? Take it up with Commander Chen." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, saw the challenge in his eyes, the dare. He was betting she wouldn't push back, wouldn't make waves, would fall in line like a good little soldier. She smiled slightly. "No problem, Gunnery Sergeant. Your show." Something flickered in Vandenberg's expression. Confusion, maybe. He'd expected resistance, gotten compliance, didn't know what to do with it. "Good. Mount up. We roll in 60 seconds. They stacked on the door, Vandenberg's term for forming a tight single-file line, weapons ready, each operator's hand on the shoulder of the person in front. Maya was first, Vandenberg directly behind her, the 6 Rangers behind him. She could feel Vandenberg's hand on her shoulder. It wasn't a supportive touch. It was possessive, controlling. His fingers dug in slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her who was in charge. The door was steel, institutional, secured with a simple handle, no lock. In a real scenario, it might be booby-trapped. Here, it was just a threshold between safety and chaos. "On your go," Vandenberg said in her ear, his breath hot against her neck. Maya took 3 deep breaths, felt her heart rate slow, wrapped her hand around the door handle. "Execute." She yanked the door open and flowed through in one smooth motion, her weapon coming up to high ready, her eyes scanning the fatal funnel of the entryway. Clear left, clear right, stairwell ahead. Door to the right, closed. "Right door," she called softly, moving to stack on it. But Vandenberg was already pushing past her. "I've got it. Cover left." He kicked the door open, no finesse, just brute force, and bowled through. His Rangers followed like water through a broken dam. Maya was left in the hallway, covering an empty stairwell, cut out of the action. She heard simunition rounds firing, heard Vandenberg shouting commands, heard someone yell, "Civilian down! Civilian down!" Then silence. The team emerged from the room. Vandenberg's face was flushed. "That was a clean kill, hostile behind the civilian, textbook shot." But the training cadre observer shook his head, consulting his tablet. "Negative. You shot the civilian. The hostile was 3 feet to the left. Non-combatant casualty on your permanent record." Vandenberg's flush deepened. "That's bullshit. I had a clear shot." "Data doesn't lie, Gunnery Sergeant. Move on." They cleared 3 more rooms. Each time, Vandenberg shouldered Maya aside, took the entry himself, rushed through with overwhelming aggression. It was fast. It was loud. It was sloppy. By the time they reached the 3rd floor, they'd accumulated 2 more civilian casualties and missed 3 hostile targets entirely. The Rangers were frustrated, confused by Vandenberg's departure from standard procedures. Maya was silent, observing, documenting in her mind. Final room. The scenario's primary objective. High-value target plus hostages. Vandenberg stacked his team on the door. "Flashbang entry, fast and hard. Reeves, you stay in the hall." "That's not proper procedure for—" "Did I ask for your input?" No, but—
Then shut up.
He turned to his rangers.
On 3. 1, 2.
The door exploded inward. Flashbang detonated. The rangers poured through. Maya heard simunition rounds, heard shouting, heard the distinctive pop, pop, pop of rapid fire. Then,
Cease fire! Cease fire!
the training observer's voice was sharp.
All hostages KIA. High-value target escaped. Mission failure.
Maya closed her eyes. She'd known. She'd seen it coming. The aggressive entry, the lack of coordination, the absence of proper target discrimination. It had been a disaster waiting to happen. Vandenberg emerged from the room, his face purple with rage. He walked straight to the observer.
That's impossible. We cleared that room perfectly. Your team fired 47 rounds. 17 hit hostages. 8 hit walls. 6 hit each other, friendly fire. Only 16 hit actual hostile targets, and you missed the HVT entirely. This wasn't clearing a room. This was a massacre.
The observer looked at his tablet.
I'm marking this as a failed exercise. You'll need to complete remedial training before you're cleared for live operations.
This is bullshit, Vandenberg's voice echoed off the concrete walls. My team knows what we're doing. The scenario was rigged. The scenario was standard. Your execution was substandard. The observer's voice was flat, professional, merciless. Debrief in 30 minutes. He walked away, leaving Vandenberg standing there, shaking with rage. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Vandenberg slowly turned to look at Maya. You, he said quietly. This is your fault. I wasn't even in the room, Gunnery Sergeant. Exactly. You were supposed to be running point. Instead, you hung back, left us without proper coverage. His voice was rising. You sabotaged this exercise. I followed your orders. You told me to stay in the hall. I told you to cover left. You were supposed to enter when we called for backup. You never called for backup. Because I assumed you'd have the tactical sense to enter when needed. He stepped closer, invading her space. But I guess that's expecting too much from someone who got their trident through political pressure instead of actual competence. The room went silent. The Rangers stared at the floor, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. Maya looked up at Vandenberg. He was 8 inches taller, 80 pounds heavier. In any physical confrontation, he'd destroy her. But this wasn't a physical confrontation. This was something else. Gunnery Sergeant, she said quietly, if you have concerns about my performance, you should address them through proper channels. Making unfounded accusations about how I earned my qualifications is not only unprofessional, it's potentially actionable. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you of military protocol, sir. His hand shot out and grabbed her vest, yanking her forward. Listen to me, you little— Staff Sergeant Vandenberg, Commander Chen's voice cracked like a whip. He was standing in the doorway, face carved from ice. Release Petty Officer Reeves immediately. Vandenberg's hand opened. Maya stepped back, her expression unchanged. My office. Now. Chen looked at Maya. You too, Petty Officer. Chen's office was small, sparse, dominated by a steel desk and 2 chairs. He sat behind the desk, made Vandenberg and Maya stand. I have the debrief from the observer, Chen said, tapping a tablet. Gunnery Sergeant Vandenberg, your team's performance was unacceptable. Multiple civilian casualties, missed targets, poor communication, and complete lack of tactical discipline. Care to explain? Vandenberg's jaw was clenched so tight Maya could see the muscle jumping. Sir, my team was undermined by inadequate support from— Stop! Chen's voice was surgical. I watched the entire exercise from the observation room. I saw you repeatedly override your assigned point operator. I saw you rush through rooms without proper clearing procedures. I saw you ignore standard protocols in favor of aggressive, undisciplined entry tactics. None of that was Petty Officer Reeves's fault. All of it was yours. Sir, I was adapting to the limitations of my team composition. You were showboating. You were trying to prove a point, that you and your Rangers could do this without help from a SEAL, specifically a female SEAL. And in doing so, you got virtual hostages killed and failed the mission. Chen leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to Petty Officer Reeves for your unprofessional conduct. You're going to complete remedial CQB training, and you're going to reevaluate whether you have the temperament for joint operations. Because right now, from where I'm sitting, you're a liability. Vandenberg's face had gone from purple to white. Sir, This is your career hanging by a thread. Your choice how this ends. For a long, terrible moment, Vandenberg said nothing. Then he turned to Maya. The look in his eyes wasn't contrition. It was pure, distilled hatred. I apologize for my conduct, Petty Officer Reeves. The words were right. The tone was acid. Maya nodded once. Apology accepted, Gunnery Sergeant. Chen looked between them. You're both dismissed. Vandenberg, report to training cadre for your remediation schedule. They walked out together, footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. At the exit, Vandenberg stopped, turned to face her. This isn't over, he said quietly. Not even close. I never thought it was, Gunnery Sergeant. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. But all you've done is make this personal. And when it's personal, I don't lose. He walked away, leaving Maya standing alone in the hallway. Her hands, she noticed, were shaking slightly. She made them into fists, then slowly released them. Took a deep breath. Chief Hunt had been right. She'd just made an enemy. A competent, vindictive, dangerous enemy who now had every reason to destroy her. And the worst part was, she had no idea what form his revenge would take. Only that it was coming. The announcement came 2 days later during morning formation. Commander Chen stood before the assembled operators with a clipboard and the kind of expression that meant someone was about to have a very bad week. Joint SEER training exercise, 72 hours, California Desert Mountains. Mixed teams, survival, evasion, resistance, escape protocols. This is not optional. Maya felt her stomach drop. SEER training was brutal under the best circumstances. Sleep deprivation, food deprivation, physical exhaustion, and simulated captivity designed to break even the hardest operators. Doing it with Vandenberg as her team leader was asking for disaster. Chen continued reading team assignments. Team 3, Staff Sergeant Vandenberg, team leader. Rangers Davis, Martinez, Chen, Cooper, Williams, and Thompson. SEAL element, Petty Officer Reeves. 7 Rangers, 1 SEAL, and Vandenberg in command. Chief Hunt caught Maya's eye from across the formation. His expression said everything his mouth couldn't. You're fucked. After dismissal, Vandenberg gathered his team, minus Maya, in the corner of the compound. She watched them huddle, saw Vandenberg's hands moving as he talked, saw the Rangers nodding. When they broke apart, every single one of them looked at her with identical expressions of cold assessment. She walked over. When's the planning session, Gunnery Sergeant? Already done it. Without me? You weren't available. I was 30 feet away. Vandenberg smiled, and there was nothing human in it. Must have missed you. Anyway, planning's complete. We brief out at 0500 tomorrow. Don't be late. What about gear coordination, comms protocols, emergency procedures? All handled. Just show up with your ruck and your attitude. He turned to his rangers. Let's move out. They left her standing there. Davis, the corporal, glanced back once. His expression might have been apologetic. Might have been pity. Either way, he kept walking. Maya found Chief Hunt in the armory an hour later. He was cleaning his sidearm with the kind of meditative focus that meant he was thinking hard about something he didn't like. He's setting me up, Maya said without preamble. I know. He's going to sabotage the exercise and blame me for any failures. I know. So what do I do? Hunt set down his cleaning rod. You survive. You document everything. You don't give him ammunition. He paused. And you watch your back, because 72 hours in the desert with a man who hates you is a long time. You think he'd actually hurt me? I think he's convinced himself you're an enemy, and enemies get neutralized. Hunt's eyes were hard. I'm going to talk to Commander Chen, see if we can get you reassigned. No. Maya. No. If I request reassignment, I'm proving his point, that I can't handle the pressure, that I need special treatment. She met his gaze. I won't give him that satisfaction. Hunt sighed. You're stubborn as hell, you know that? You taught me well, Chief. The briefing at 0500 was a masterclass in exclusion. Vandenberg had maps, gear lists, contingency plans, all prepared without her input. When she asked questions, he cut her off. When she suggested modifications, he ignored her. By the end of 30 minutes, the message was crystal clear. She was cargo, not crew. One more thing, Vandenberg said as they were packing up. I'm issuing gear from our stock. Rangers use ranger equipment. Standard issue. I have my own gear, properly maintained, and you'll use what I give you. Team cohesion means standardized equipment. He handed her a rucksack, a radio, and a GPS unit. Maya took them without comment, but the moment she was alone, she inspected them carefully. The rucksack had a torn shoulder strap, hastily duct-taped. The radio was an older model, the kind that failed in extreme temperatures, and the GPS unit had a cracked screen, the kind of damage that made it unreliable at best, useless at worst. She photographed everything with her phone. Documentation. Evidence. Then she repacked the ruck with her own gear, reinforced the strap with paracord, and tested the radio. It worked. Barely. The GPS was a coin flip. She'd have to rely on map and compass. Standard equipment, her ass. The desert at dawn was a study in extremes, freezing cold that would turn to hellish heat within hours. They loaded into trucks at 0600, drove 3 hours into the mountains, and were dumped at a rally point that looked like Mars. Red dirt, scrub brush, and endless sky. All right, listen up, Vandenberg said, gathering his team. We've got a 72-hour window to complete a 40-mile navigation course, evade a hunter force, and extract at the designated point. Water resupply at mile markers 15 and 30. No external support. No shortcuts. Questions? Maya raised her hand. What's the pace plan? Fast. Can you be more specific? What's our target time for the first leg? Fast enough that we don't get caught. The Rangers chuckled. Maya didn't. They started moving at 0700. Vandenberg set a blistering pace, 4 miles per hour over rough terrain with 60-pound rucks. It was designed to break her. He knew SEALs trained extensively in water operations, but less in sustained overland movement. He was gambling that her smaller frame couldn't maintain the pace. He was wrong. Maya had grown up running. Her father, the Marine drill instructor, had made her run every morning before school from age 12.
By 14, she was running half marathons. By 16, full marathons. Her legs were short, but they were efficient. Her lungs were conditioned. Her pain tolerance was titanium. She stayed on Vandenberg's shoulder the entire first hour. He increased the pace. She matched him. He increased again, pushing to nearly 5 miles per hour. The Rangers began to struggle, breathing hard, stumbling on rocks. Maya's breathing stayed controlled, rhythmic. By hour 2, Vandenberg's face was red and streaming sweat. Maya looked like she was taking a morning jog. "Water break," Vandenberg gasped, calling a halt. The Rangers collapsed in the shade of a rock outcropping. Maya sat on her ruck, sipped water, and checked her map. They'd covered 8 miles, 32 to go. Vandenberg sat next to her, breathing hard. "You trying to prove something?" "Just keeping up, Gunnery Sergeant." "Yeah, well, slow down. We move as a team." "I am moving as a team. The team that's setting the pace." His jaw clenched. "When I say slow down, you slow down. That's an order." "Copy that." But the rest of the day was more of the same. Vandenberg would increase the pace to try to break her. She'd match him effortlessly. The Rangers would struggle, and he'd have to call a break before his own team collapsed from heat exhaustion. By the time they made camp at 20 miles, Vandenberg was furious, and the Rangers were looking at Maya with something that might have been respect. They set up a patrol base in a shallow wash, good concealment, poor defensibility. Maya would have chosen higher ground, but she wasn't in charge. She was digging her sleeping position when Davis approached, carrying his canteen. "Hey, Reeves, that was impressive today. Most people can't maintain that pace." "I run a lot." "Yeah, but with a 60-pound ruck? In this heat?" He shook his head. "That's next level." "Thanks." He lowered his voice. "Look, I just want you to know. Some of this stuff Vandenberg's doing, not all of us agree with it." Maya looked at him carefully. "But you're following his orders anyway." "He's my team leader. That doesn't make him right." Davis shifted uncomfortably. "I know, but what am I supposed to do? Refuse orders? Go against my whole team?" "You could stand up for what's right, instead of what's easy." He flinched like she'd slapped him. "It's not that simple." "It never is." He walked away, and Maya finished digging her position. She was spreading out her sleeping mat when she heard Vandenberg's voice, loud enough to carry. "Tomorrow we double our pace. If some people can't keep up, they can navigate to the extraction point on their own. This is a team exercise, not babysitting." The implication was clear. If she fell behind, they'd leave her. In violation of every safety protocol, every rule about never leaving a team member alone in hostile territory. Maya didn't respond. She ate her ration, cleaned her weapon, and settled in for first watch. The desert night was cold and clear, stars so bright they looked close enough to touch. She was 2 hours into her watch when she heard movement. Footsteps trying to be quiet. She turned slowly, hand on her sidearm. Martinez and Cooper, 2 of Vandenberg's Rangers, were approaching her position. They stopped about 10 feet away, backlit by moonlight. "Can I help you?" Maya asked quietly. Martinez laughed, low and unpleasant. "Just doing a security check, making sure you're not sleeping on watch." "I'm awake." "We can see that." Cooper moved closer. "Nice night, huh? Cold, though. Bet you're cold in that little sleeping bag." "I'm fine." "You look cold." Martinez again. "Your lips are kind of blue. Or is that just the light?" They were circling now, one on each side. Maya stood up slowly, keeping both of them in her peripheral vision. "Is there a point to this conversation?" "Just wanted to make sure you were comfortable," Cooper said. "Because, you know,
If you're too uncomfortable, you could always quit. We'd understand.
This kind of training isn't for everyone. I'm not quitting. Yeah, that's what they all say, right up until they hit the wall. Martinez was close enough now that she could smell his breath. Wonder when you'll hit yours? Probably around the same time you two develop some actual tactical sense. Walking up on someone during their watch shift? That's a good way to get shot. Cooper's smile faded. You threatening us? I'm observing that your noise discipline is terrible, and your approach was visible from 300 meters out. If this was a real scenario, you'd both be dead. Martinez stepped closer, invading her space. You think you're so smart, don't you? Think you're better than us? I think I'm better at staying awake during my watch shift. Now, if you're done with your security check, I have a perimeter to monitor. She turned her back on them, a calculated risk, a display of contempt. Heard them mutter something, heard their footsteps retreat, but she didn't relax, because that had been a test, a probe to see how she'd react to intimidation, and based on the low conversation she could hear from their sleeping positions, they were reporting back to Vandenberg. The real test was coming. It came the next morning, during what should have been a routine navigation exercise. Vandenberg gathered the team at first light. We're splitting into 2 elements for a reconnaissance push. My group will take the main route. Reeves, you'll do a solo scout of the eastern ridge, confirm there's no hunter force in that sector, then rejoin us at checkpoint Bravo. He handed her a map with a route marked in red ink. Maya studied it. The route was indirect, adding at least 3 miles to her movement. The terrain was rougher. And checkpoint Bravo was in a location that didn't match the master navigation plan from the briefing. This doesn't align with our primary route, she said. That's why it's called reconnaissance. You're checking an alternate route. The grid coordinates for checkpoint Bravo are exactly where I marked them. You have a problem with that? Every instinct Maya had was screaming that something was wrong. The route was inefficient. The checkpoint location was suspicious, and Vandenberg was pushing too hard for her to accept without question. But if she refused, she'd be insubordinate. She'd prove his narrative that she couldn't follow orders. No problem, Gunnery Sergeant. When do you want me at checkpoint Bravo? 1400 hours. Don't be late. He smiled. Hate to leave you behind. She took the map, shouldered her ruck, and headed east. The moment she was out of sight of the main group, she stopped and really studied the map. The coordinates were wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. Checkpoint Bravo, according to this map, was 15 miles northeast of their actual objective. If she followed these coordinates, she'd be moving away from the extraction point, deeper into the desert, toward terrain that the briefing had marked as restricted due to unstable geology. He'd given her a map designed to get her lost. Maya pulled out her GPS unit, the damaged one he'd issued her. Tried to get a satellite fix. The cracked screen flickered, showed her position jumping erratically across the display. Useless. She pulled out her personal compass, her backup map, the one she'd printed from her own briefing materials, and did the math. Vandenberg had altered the coordinates by nearly 20 degrees. Following his route would have her wandering in circles while the team extracted without her, leaving her alone in the desert with minimal water, no support, and a faulty radio. It wasn't just sabotage. It was potentially fatal. Maya stood there in the desert silence, feeling rage build in her chest like a pressure wave. He'd crossed a line. This wasn't harassment. This wasn't professional undermining. This was deliberate endangerment. She had 2 choices: follow the false coordinates and prove she was incompetent at navigation, or correct the route and prove she'd ignored his orders. She chose option 3. Follow his route just long enough to establish plausible deniability, then use her actual navigation skills to reach the real checkpoint Bravo before he did. She moved fast,
using terrain features instead of the faulty GPS. The sun for direction, the mountains for orientation, the weathering patterns on rocks to confirm north-south alignment. Navigation techniques she'd learned from an old Marine Raider instructor who'd operated in the desert for 3 decades. She covered the ground in 4 hours, half the time Vandenberg's false route would have taken, and arrived at the real checkpoint Bravo at 13:30, 30 minutes early. She found concealment in a rock formation and waited. At 14:15, Vandenberg and his team appeared, moving slowly, looking tired. They were scanning the area, clearly expecting it to be empty. Vandenberg keyed his radio. "Team leader to Reeves, what's your position?" Maya keyed hers. "Checkpoint Bravo, standing by." She watched his head snap up, scanning the terrain. "Say again?" "I'm at Checkpoint Bravo, grid 335774, where you told me to be." She stood up from her concealment, 30 meters from his position, and waved. The look on Vandenberg's face was worth every hard mile she'd covered. Shock, disbelief, and, underneath it all, the first flicker of something that might have been fear. She'd beaten him at his own game. When they regrouped, Vandenberg said nothing, but Davis caught her eye and gave the smallest nod of approval. One of the other rangers, Thompson, actually smiled. Vandenberg noticed. His face darkened. That night, he changed tactics. They were setting up camp when he announced the night raid simulation. "Intelligence indicates enemy forces in Sector 12. We're conducting a reconnaissance and possible interdiction. Reeves, you're in command." Every head turned toward her. "This is your chance to prove you can lead," Vandenberg continued, his voice carrying false encouragement. "We'll follow your plan. Your call on tactics, movement, engagement protocols. Everything." It was a trap. She could see it in his eyes, hear it in his tone. He was setting her up to fail in front of his entire team. "What's the intelligence package?" Maya asked. "I'll brief you when we're in position." "I need the intelligence now to plan the approach." "The situation is fluid. You'll get what you need when you need it." "That's not how mission planning works." "That's how it works tonight, unless you're not confident in your ability to adapt." He raised his voice. "Everyone hear that? Your team leader needs perfect conditions to operate. Real combat must be so accommodating." The Rangers shifted uncomfortably. They were tired, hungry, on edge, and Vandenberg was positioning Maya as the reason for their continued discomfort. "I'll take the command," Maya said quietly. "But I'm putting on record that this is inadequate mission planning." "Noted. Move out in 15 minutes." Maya pulled Davis aside when Vandenberg wasn't looking. "This is wrong. You know it's wrong." Davis looked at the ground. "I can't help you." "I'm not asking for help. I'm asking you to think about what happens when we get back, when they review this exercise, when they ask why things went wrong." "They won't ask me." "Yes, they will. They'll ask everyone, and you'll have to decide what to tell them." She walked away before he could respond. 15 minutes later, they were moving through the dark desert, Maya in the lead with nothing but Vandenberg's vague directions and a bad feeling in her gut. They'd been moving for 20 minutes when the radio crackled with static, then a voice Maya didn't recognize. All stations, this is Overwatch. We have a real-world emergency. Civilian hiker, Sector 7, last known position grid 335774. Medical emergency, possible snakebite. All training exercises suspended immediately. Real-world search and rescue is now active. Maya stopped moving, pulled out her map. Sector 7 was 12 miles from their current position. Vandenberg's voice came over the radio, and she could hear the smile in it, even through the static. Reeves, you're closest to Sector 7. Since you're in command of this exercise, I'm sure you can handle a simple search and rescue.
My team will return to base camp. Don't screw this up. Maya looked at the Rangers surrounding her. They were looking back at her, waiting for orders. But their expressions had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by uncertainty, because they all understood what had just happened. Vandenberg had just handed her an impossible mission. 12 miles of rough terrain with a team that had been ordered to undermine her using faulty equipment to save a civilian who might already be dead. If she succeeded, it would be despite him. If she failed, a person would die and her career would end. She keyed her radio. "Copy that, Gunnery Sergeant. Moving to Sector 7 now." She turned to the Rangers. "All right, listen up. We have 12 miles, rough terrain, and someone who's dying. I need to know right now, are you with me, or are you following Vandenberg's plan to watch me fail?" Silence. The kind that stretches seconds into hours. Then Davis stepped forward. "What do you need, ma'am?" Maya didn't waste time on gratitude. "Chen, your point navigator. Use my compass. Cross-reference every 500 meters. Martinez, get that radio working. I don't care if you have to rebuild it with spit and wire. Thompson, medical kit inventory, everything we have. The rest of you, redistribute weight. We're moving in 90 seconds. The Rangers responded without hesitation. Davis was already pulling out his map. Thompson was dumping his ruck on the ground, sorting through medical supplies. Even Martinez, who'd tried to intimidate her the night before, was stripping down the radio with focused intensity. "Ma'am, the radio's got a corroded battery terminal," Martinez said after 30 seconds of inspection. "I can bypass it, but the range is going to be garbage." "How much range?" "Maybe 2 miles. 3 if we're lucky and the terrain cooperates." "Make it work. We'll get closer to Overwatch when we can." Maya turned to Davis.
"What's the fastest route to Sector 7?
He traced a line on the map with his finger. "Straight shot through the canyon system. 30 minutes if we push hard."
"What's the safe route?"
"Around the eastern ridge. Adds 90 minutes." Maya did the math. The emergency call had come in 15 minutes ago. Rattlesnake envenomation with severe allergic reaction meant they had maybe 4 hours before the victim's airway closed completely. 90 minutes they didn't have.
"We go through the canyon. Single file, minimum noise. Chen, you're rear security. Anyone falls, you rope them up. Let's move."
They moved through the desert like a machine that had suddenly found its rhythm. Davis was on her 6, then Thompson, then Martinez and the others, all of them pushing hard but not recklessly, maintaining formation, conserving energy for when they'd really need it. Maya set the pace at just under the breaking point, fast enough to make time, slow enough that nobody would collapse before they reached the target. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Fast is deadly efficient." They covered the first 4 miles in 40 minutes. "Contact Overwatch," Maya called back to Martinez.
"See if we can get an update on the victim's condition."
Martinez keyed the radio. Static. He adjusted the frequency. More static. Then a weak, broken transmission. "Overwatch. Repeat. Condition deteriorating. Airway compromised." The signal died. "That's all I got," Martinez said, his face grim. "But it doesn't sound good." Maya increased the pace. They hit the canyon entrance at the 50-minute mark. The terrain changed immediately. Loose scree underfoot, narrow walls rising on both sides. The kind of geological formation that looked stable, but could shift without warning.
Hold up, Thompson said, pointing at a small pile of rocks that had fallen across the path.
"This wasn't here on the survey photos from the briefing." Maya examined the debris. Fresh breaks, sharp edges, no weathering.
Recent seismic activity, she said. The whole canyon system is unstable.
We should go around, Williams said, the youngest of the rangers, his voice tight with nerves.
We don't have time to go around.
Maya looked at the canyon walls, the narrow passage ahead.
We go through, but we go quiet. No talking, minimal foot impact. Watch every step. One person triggers a slide, we all go down.
Davis was staring at her. This is insane. The whole thing could come down on us.
I know. But there's a 19-year-old girl dying on a ledge 12 miles from here, and we're the only people who can reach her in time. So yeah, it's insane. But we're doing it anyway.
She didn't wait for agreement. She started walking, placing each foot with deliberate care, moving through the canyon like she was walking on eggshells. Behind her, after a 3 count of hesitation, the rangers followed. The canyon was 1,000 yards of held breath. Every footstep sounded like thunder. Every small stone that skittered down the wall sounded like an avalanche warning. Maya's heart was hammering, but her breathing stayed controlled. Her movements stayed smooth. Halfway through, Cooper's foot slipped on loose gravel. He caught himself, but the movement sent a cascade of small stones sliding down the wall. Everyone froze. The canyon held. Barely.
Keep moving,
Maya whispered.
Slow and steady.
They emerged from the canyon 70 minutes into the march. 8 miles down, 4 to go. Maya's radio crackled. Martinez had been trying to raise Overwatch every 10 minutes. This time, he got through. Overwatch, this is Rescue Element. What's the victim's current status? The response was clearer now, close enough for better signal strength.
Rescue Element, victim is conscious but deteriorating. Severe anaphylaxis, respiratory distress increasing. Estimate 30 to 40 minutes before airway closure is critical. Current position confirmed Sector 7, grid 335774. Elevation 2,000 feet on east-facing cliff.
30 minutes, 4 miles, and the victim was on a cliff. Copy that, Overwatch. We're 25 minutes out. Have medevac standing by. Maya turned to her team.
Double time, now!
They ran. Full rucks, rough terrain, already exhausted from 3 days of training and 2 days of Vandenberg's punishment pace. They ran anyway. Thompson fell after 2 miles, twisting his ankle on a rock. Chen hauled him up without being asked. They kept running. Williams was cramping, his face pale, his breathing ragged. Davis grabbed his ruck, threw it over his own shoulder, and kept running. And Maya led them, her legs burning, her lungs screaming, running on pure will and the knowledge that someone was dying while they wasted seconds. They reached Sector 7 with 12 minutes to spare. The cliff face was a nightmare. 60 feet of unstable rock, fracture lines visible even from the base, and halfway up, on a ledge barely wider than a human body, was a young woman in hiking clothes. She wasn't moving.
Emily!
Maya shouted up.
Emily, can you hear me?
A weak sound, maybe a word, maybe just a moan. She's alive, Thompson said, dumping his medical kit. But not for long. We need to get up there. Maya studied the cliff. The direct route was a technical climb, class 5.8 at minimum, requiring gear they didn't have. The ledge Emily was on was accessed by a crumbling natural shelf that looked like it would disintegrate under any weight.
We need to rappel down to her, not climb up,
Maya said.
But the only anchor point stable enough is on the opposite side of that gap.
She pointed to a 10-foot span of empty air between their position and a rock outcropping that looked solid. Below the gap was a 40-foot drop onto jagged rocks. That's a suicide jump, Davis said flatly. Nobody makes that carrying rope and gear. Maya was already stripping off her ruck.
I'll make it.
Maya,
it's the only way.
You know it, I know it. We don't have time to argue. She was down to her pants and sports bra now, the same one Vandenberg had mocked 4 days ago. She started loading climbing gear onto a harness. Minimal weight, maximum utility. Davis grabbed her arm. If you miss, you die. If I don't jump, she dies. Choice is pretty clear. She shook off his hand, checked her harness one more time, and walked back to get a running start. Wait, Martinez said. At least let me. You're 200 pounds.
I'm 130. Physics says I have a better chance. Maya locked eyes with him. I'm not being a hero. I'm being tactical. She didn't give them time to argue further. She ran at the gap, her legs pumping, her focus narrowed to a single point on the opposite outcropping. 3 steps from the edge, she planted her foot and launched. For 1 eternal second, she was flying. Arms windmilling, gear jangling, nothing but air beneath her feet and gravity pulling her down toward the rocks below. Her hands hit the outcropping. Her fingers found a crack. Her momentum tried to rip her off, but she'd aimed for a handhold, and her grip was titanium from 1,000 pull-ups. And she held on. She pulled herself up, got her feet under her, and immediately started setting anchors. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up, but they were steady enough. "Rope!" she shouted. Davis threw a coil across the gap. She caught it, tied it off to her anchor system, and rappelled down to Emily's ledge. The girl was worse than Maya had feared. Her leg was grotesquely swollen, the snake bite visible as 2 puncture wounds oozing fluid. Her lips were blue. Her breathing was shallow, wheezing, the sound of an airway closing. "Emily, I'm Maya. I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm going to get you out of here, but I need you to stay with me. Can you do that?" Emily's eyes flickered open, tried to focus, failed. "Thompson!" Maya shouted across the gap. "I need the EpiPen! Now!" He threw a medical kit across. She caught it, one-handed, pulled out the epinephrine auto-injector, and jammed it into Emily's thigh. 15 seconds. 30. 45. Emily gasped, a huge, shuddering breath, and started coughing. "There you go. Breathe. Just breathe." Maya started an IV line, pushed fluids, checked Emily's vitals. Pulse was thready but present. Blood pressure was in the basement. She was stable. Barely. Martinez, get Overwatch. Tell them we need immediate medevac to this location. Victim is stabilized but critical. She heard Martinez on the radio, heard him requesting the helicopter, heard the response that made her blood run cold. "Negative on medevac to your location. Canyon walls are too narrow for rotor wash. You need to move the victim to open ground for extraction." Maya looked at the cliff below her, the unstable rock, the narrow ledge. Emily, who weighed maybe 110 and was barely conscious. "We have to move her," Maya called to Davis. "Can you rig a litter haul system?" "Yeah, but it's going to take time, and we need more rope." "Use what we've got. Improvise the rest. Just make it happen." For the next 20 minutes, they worked with desperate efficiency. Davis and Chen rigged a Z-pulley system using carabiners and spare cord. Thompson prepared Emily for transport, splinting her leg, wrapping her in a thermal blanket. Maya secured her to an improvised litter made from 2 tent poles and a tarp. They were lowering Emily down the cliff face, inch by careful inch, when Maya heard the sound that would haunt her nightmares forever. An engine, growing closer, coming from the canyon. "Who the hell is that?" Davis said, staring toward the canyon entrance. Maya knew. She knew before she saw the vehicle, knew before she heard his voice on the radio. "Reeves, this is Vandenberg. I'm taking command of this rescue operation. Hold your position." The vehicle,
A tactical truck from the base motor pool came barreling into the canyon at a speed that was reckless, stupid, suicidal in unstable terrain. Maya keyed her radio. "Vandenberg, stop the vehicle. The canyon is seismically unstable. You're going to trigger a rock slide." "I said I'm taking command. That wasn't a request." "Gunnery Sergeant, you are not authorized." "I don't need authorization to save your ass when you've gotten in over your head."
Again. The truck's engine roared, echoing off the canyon walls. The vibrations were immediate. Small stones started falling, then larger ones. "Everyone move to the north wall!" Maya screamed. "Under that overhang, now!" The Rangers scrambled. Davis grabbed Emily's litter. Chen grabbed the trailing rope, and they ran for the only solid cover visible, a rock overhang that jutted out from the canyon wall. Maya was last, making sure everyone was clear, when she saw it. A boulder the size of a car detaching from the canyon wall, directly above where Thompson was running. She didn't think. She ran at him, hit him with a full-body tackle that sent them both sprawling toward the overhang, just as the boulder crashed down where he'd been standing a second earlier. The impact triggered everything else. The canyon walls began shedding rock like a snake shedding skin. Small stones became medium stones, became massive chunks of geology raining down with the force of artillery shells. Maya grabbed Thompson's vest and dragged him the last 6 feet to cover. They huddled under the overhang, 8 people and 1 barely conscious civilian, crushed together while tons of rock crashed down around them. The roar was deafening. The dust was choking. And through it all, Maya heard the crunch of metal being crushed. Vandenberg's truck was being buried alive. The rock slide lasted 90 seconds. When it finally stopped, the silence was worse than the noise had been. Maya was the first to move, coughing in the dust, checking her people. "Sound off. Who's hurt?" "I'm good," Davis said, helping Thompson sit up. "Good here," Martinez confirmed. The others echoed the same. Emily was unconscious, but breathing, protected by the litter and 3 Rangers who'd used their bodies as shields. "The truck," Chen said, staring at the massive pile of debris that now blocked the canyon entrance. "Vandenberg was in the truck." Maya grabbed her radio. "Vandenberg, respond." "What's your status?" Static. Then a weak voice, pain-laced and thready.
"Reeves, the truck's crushed. Can't move my legs."
They found him 15 minutes later, after carefully shifting rocks, terrified of triggering another slide. The truck's cab was pancaked, reduced from 6 feet of height to maybe 3. Vandenberg was pinned inside, his left leg trapped under the collapsed dash, his right leg bent at an angle that made Maya's stomach turn. He was conscious, barely. His face was the color of old paper.
"Don't touch me,"
he gasped when Maya reached through the broken window.
"I don't need your help."
"You need a tourniquet, a splint, and about 6 units of blood you don't have. So yeah, you need my help." She looked back at Thompson. "Get over here. We need to stabilize him before we can extract." Vandenberg tried to push her away, but his hand was weak, trembling.
"I hate you,"
he whispered. "I know," Maya said, already assessing his injuries. Compound fracture of the femur, bone visible through torn flesh. Severe lacerations across his chest, possible internal bleeding, probable concussion. He was in shock, his body shutting down from trauma. She got to work. Setting a broken femur in field conditions is one of the worst experiences in battlefield medicine. The bone has to be realigned, which means pulling on a leg that's already screaming with pain. Vandenberg screamed too, a sound that was barely human, and then passed out. Better that way. Thompson helped her splint the leg. Martinez rigged a blood pressure cuff from spare webbing and used it as a tourniquet. Davis coordinated with Overwatch, updating them on their situation. 2 critical casualties, 1 stable team, trapped in a canyon by rockslide debris.
Overwatch says heavy equipment can't reach us for 6 to 8 hours, Davis reported, his face grim. Emily won't last that long. Neither will Vandenberg.
Maya looked at the wall of rock blocking their exit, looked at the cliff face she'd jumped across, looked at her team, exhausted and covered in dust but still standing.
There's another way out, she said quietly. That chimney formation, 200 yards north. It's a vertical exit to the mesa above. From there, helicopter extraction is possible.
That's a 60-foot technical climb through a crack barely wider than a body, Chen said, staring at the formation. With 2 casualties who can't climb.
We don't climb with them. We send someone up first, establish a top rope anchor, then haul them up using a pulley system.
Who's climbing it? That's a class 5.8 minimum. Free solo. One mistake and you're dead.
Maya was already walking toward the chimney, assessing the route. I've climbed worse.
When?
Basic reconnaissance course, 3rd phase. We did a night climb on the cliffs at Coronado that make this look like a playground. She turned back to face her team. I can do this, but I need you to trust me.
Davis looked at the cliff, looked at her. If you fall, I won't fall. But if I do, you get Emily and Vandenberg out anyway. That's an order. She didn't wait for permission. She started climbing. The chimney was a crack in the rock face that required a technique called... She couldn't remember the technical term. Her instructors had called it the worm. Wedge your back against one wall, your feet against the other, and inch upward using counterpressure and friction. It was exhausting. It was terrifying, and every foot of elevation gained felt like it might be her last. At 30 feet, her legs started shaking. At 40 feet, her back was screaming. At 50 feet, she hit an overhang that required her to free climb using finger-width cracks and hope. Below her, the Rangers watched in absolute silence. She found a handhold, pulled herself up, found another. Her fingers were bleeding now, torn on the sharp rock. She didn't care. She pulled herself over the overhang, found the next crack, kept climbing. At 60 feet, she crested the top of the mesa and collapsed on solid ground, her chest heaving, her hands shaking so badly she could barely tie the anchor knots. But she tied them anyway. "Anchor's set!" she shouted down. "Send up the rope!" They hauled Emily up first, wrapped in the litter, moving slowly and carefully. Then Vandenberg, unconscious and groaning whenever the movement jostled his broken leg. Then the Rangers, one by one, each of them staring at Maya with expressions she'd never seen before. Respect. Unqualified, absolute respect. The medevac helicopter arrived 20 minutes later, landing on the flat mesa with its rotors kicking up dust storms. The medics loaded Emily and Vandenberg, started advanced treatment, and lifted off. Maya sat on a rock, watching the helicopter disappear into the distance, and finally let herself shake. Davis sat down beside her. "You saved his life." "I saved everyone's life." "No, I mean specifically his, the man who's been trying to destroy you for a week. You could have left him, claimed you couldn't reach him safely. Nobody would have questioned it." Maya looked at her bleeding hands. "That's not who I am." "I know," Davis said quietly. "That's why I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not standing up sooner. For letting him get away with it. For being a coward when you needed someone to have your back." He met her eyes. "You're twice the operator he'll ever be. And I should have said that 5 days ago." Before Maya could respond, her radio crackled.
Commander Chen's voice, clear and sharp. Petty Officer Reeves, this is Commander Chen. I've been monitoring the emergency communications. I need you to understand something. Every word Vandenberg said on the radio today has been recorded. Every order he ignored, every reckless decision he made. We have it all. Maya keyed her radio. Understood, sir. His career is over.
Do you understand what I'm telling you?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now get your team back to base. We'll debrief when you arrive. And Reeves?
Sir?
Outstanding work. Chen out. Maya sat there, looking at the desert spreading out before her, and felt something shift in her chest. Not victory, not relief, just the quiet knowledge that she'd done her job. Perfectly. Under impossible conditions. Despite everything. And that knowledge, she realized, was enough. The helicopter ride back to base was silent except for the rotor wash. The Rangers sat against the bulkhead, staring at nothing, processing what had just happened. Maya sat near the door, watching the desert scroll by below, her hands still shaking slightly from adrenaline crash. Davis leaned over, had to shout to be heard over the noise. "You okay?" Maya nodded. She wasn't, but she would be. When they touched down at the base helipad, Commander Chen was waiting with 3 other officers Maya didn't recognize. 2 wore JAG insignia. The third was a Navy captain, with more ribbons on his chest than Maya had seen outside of a formal ceremony. Chen approached as Maya climbed out.
Petty Officer Reeves, these gentlemen need to speak with you immediately. Sir, my team needs medical evaluation, food, rest. Your team will be taken care of. This can't wait. His expression was unreadable. It's not optional. The debriefing room was small, windowless, and cold. The JAG officers sat on one side of a metal table. Maya sat on the other. A digital recorder sat between them, its red light already blinking. State your name and rank for the record, the senior JAG officer said. His nameplate read Collins, and his eyes were the kind of gray that gave nothing away. Petty Officer First Class Maya Reeves, United States Navy. Petty Officer Reeves, you are not under investigation. You are not being accused of any wrongdoing. We need to be very clear about that from the start.
Do you understand? Maya's stomach unclenched slightly.
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, I need you to walk us through everything that happened over the past 72 hours. Every detail, every conversation, every order given and received. Start from the initial team assignment, and don't leave anything out. Maya talked for 2 hours. She gave them everything. The sabotaged equipment, the false coordinates, the harassment from Vandenberg's Rangers, the shower incident, the deliberate undermining during the CQB exercise. She kept her voice level, her delivery factual. But by the time she got to the canyon and the rock slide, her hands were clenched white-knuckle tight under the table. Collins took notes on a tablet. The other JAG officer, a woman named Captain Morrison, listened with an expression that grew progressively darker. When Maya finished, Morrison leaned forward. You saved Staff Sergeant Vandenberg's life after everything he did to you. Why? Because it was my job, ma'am. That's not a complete answer. Maya met her eyes.
Because leaving him to die would make me the person he accused me of being. Someone who doesn't belong here. Someone who can't handle the pressure. Someone who puts personal feelings above the mission. She paused. I won't give him that satisfaction, even if he never knows it. Morrison nodded slowly. That's what I thought you'd say. Collins pulled up something on his tablet. Petty Officer Reeves, are you aware that all training communications are recorded and monitored by base operations? Yes, sir. Standard protocol. Then you'll be interested to know that we have every radio transmission from the past 72 hours. Every word Vandenberg said. Every order he gave. Every time he deliberately endangered you or your mission. He turned the tablet around so Maya could see the screen. It was a transcript, time-stamped and color-coded. The green highlights are communications that demonstrate clear professional conduct.
The red highlights are communications that violate military protocol, safety regulations, or constitute harassment. Would you like to guess the ratio? Maya looked at the screen. It was almost entirely red. We also have testimony from your team, Morrison added. All 6 Rangers submitted statements, voluntarily, without being asked. What did they say? That you saved their lives. That Vandenberg deliberately sabotaged you. That everything in your report is accurate. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Corporal Davis in particular was very thorough. He documented incidents we didn't even know about. Maya felt something catch in her throat. He did? He did. He also submitted a formal complaint against Vandenberg for creating a hostile environment, falsifying navigation data, and reckless endangerment. The other Rangers co-signed it. Collins closed his tablet. Staff Sergeant Vandenberg is currently in surgery. When he wakes up, he'll be placed under guard pending a formal Article 32 investigation. Based on the evidence we have, I expect full court-martial proceedings within 30 days. His military career is over. What about the Rangers? They'll face non-judicial punishment under Article 15 for failure to report harassment and for following unlawful orders. Loss of rank, loss of pay, mandatory retraining. But they'll keep their careers. Morrison looked at Maya carefully. Does that satisfy you? It's not about satisfaction, ma'am. It's about accountability. Good answer. Collins stood up. You're dismissed, petty officer. Get some food, get some sleep. We'll need you for the formal investigation, but that won't start until Vandenberg is medically cleared. Maya stood, feeling the exhaustion hit her all at once. Sir, what happens to Emily, the civilian we rescued? She's in stable condition at the regional hospital. Full recovery expected. Her parents wanted me to tell you they'd like to speak with you when you're ready. I'd like that, sir. She walked out of the debriefing room and found Chief Hunt waiting in the hallway. He took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug that was brief, fierce, and completely against regulations. You did good, kid, he said quietly. Really good. Maya nodded against his shoulder, not trusting her voice. The mess hall that night was different. Maya walked in expecting the usual isolation, the usual whispers. Instead, she got something she'd never experienced before. Silence. Then, starting from the table nearest the door, operators began standing. One by one, table by table, until the entire mess hall was on its feet. It wasn't applause. It wasn't cheers. It was something quieter and infinitely more powerful. A gesture of respect from people who understood exactly what she'd done and what it had cost. Maya stood frozen in the doorway, her tray trembling in her hands. Davis was at a table near the back. He caught her eye and nodded once. The rest of his ranger team did the same. She found a seat. The mess hall slowly returned to normal noise levels, but as she ate her dinner, operators stopped by her table. SEALs, Rangers, Air Force PJs, Marine Recon. None of them said much. A nod, a brief word. But the message was clear. She was one of them now. Fully. Finally. 3 days later, Vandenberg woke up in the hospital with a guard stationed outside his room and a JAG officer waiting to read him his rights. Maya heard about it from Chief Hunt, who'd heard it from Commander Chen, who'd been present for the initial interview. He tried to lie, Hunt said, sitting across from Maya in the armory where she was cleaning her gear for the 3rd time.
Said you'd endangered the rescue, that you'd ignored his orders, that the rock slide was your fault for choosing the wrong route.
Of course he did.
Then they played him the audio recordings. Every word, every order, every lie he told on the radio. Hunt's smile was grim. Chen said Vandenberg went white, just sat there staring at the wall while his own voice condemned him.
What did he say?
Nothing at first. Then he tried to claim he was just motivating you, that it was tough love, that SEALs are supposed to handle pressure. Hunt shook his head. Collins shut him down hard, told him the difference between tough love and criminal negligence, and that Vandenberg had crossed that line about 50 times in 72 hours. Maya kept cleaning her rifle, the motions automatic and soothing.
What's the timeline for the court-martial?
Fast. The evidence is overwhelming. They're not dragging this out. Hunt paused. Chen wants you to testify. Maya's hands stopped moving.
Do I have to?
Legally, no. The recordings and the ranger's testimony are enough to convict. But Chen thinks it's important that you have the opportunity to face him, to say your piece.
I don't want to face him. I just want this to be over.
I know, but he's going to claim he was training you, pushing you to be better. Your testimony kills that narrative. You were there. You know the difference between tough training and deliberate sabotage. Maya set down her cleaning rod.
When?
2 weeks, maybe less. She nodded slowly. 2 weeks to prepare to sit in a room with Vandenberg and calmly, professionally, describe every moment he'd tried to destroy her. 2 weeks to decide if she could do it without her voice shaking. The investigation expanded in ways Maya hadn't anticipated. The JAG team didn't just look at the past week. They pulled Vandenberg's entire service record, interviewed people from his previous commands, talked to every woman who'd gone through training programs under his supervision. A pattern emerged. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 10th time.
Morrison came to Maya's quarters one evening with a folder she handled like it contained something toxic.
I need to show you something, Morrison said, sitting on the edge of Maya's desk. It's not pretty, and it's going to make you angry. But you need to see it before the court-martial. She opened the folder. Inside were statements from 12 women, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, women who'd been harassed, undermined, sabotaged by Vandenberg over a 15-year career.
He did this to all of them,
Morrison said quietly.
Some quit, some pushed through.
None of them filed formal complaints because they were afraid of retaliation, afraid of being labeled troublemakers, afraid no one would believe them. Maya read through the statements, feeling rage build with each page. One woman had been given deliberately faulty equipment during a live fire exercise and nearly been killed. Another had been repeatedly excluded from mission planning until her performance reviews suffered.
A third had been subjected to sexual comments disguised as jokes until she requested a transfer just to escape.
Why didn't anyone stop him?
Maya asked, her voice tight.
Because he was good at his job. Because he had supporters in the command structure who thought women didn't belong in combat roles and saw him as a defender of standards. Because the women he targeted were isolated, outnumbered, and afraid.
Morrison closed the folder.
Until you.
I'm not special. Yes, you are. You documented everything. You didn't quit. You saved his life, which makes him look like the petty, vindictive bastard he is, while you look like a professional. And, most importantly, you had witnesses. Male witnesses who were willing to corroborate your story.
Davis and the others.
Davis, especially. He's giving testimony that's going to end Vandenberg's career and possibly lead to criminal charges beyond the military system.
Maya looked up sharply.
Criminal charges? The false navigation data he gave you constitutes reckless endangerment. The rock slide he triggered could be argued as negligent homicide if anyone had died. The sexual harassment is documented. This isn't just a court-martial anymore, Maya. The civilian authorities are involved. The weight of that settled over the room like snow.
He's going to prison,
Maya said quietly. Yes, for a long time. Morrison stood up. I wanted you to know before the court-martial, and I wanted you to know that those 12 women are watching this case. What happens to Vandenberg sets a precedent. It tells every woman in the military whether reporting harassment is worth the risk.
That's a lot of pressure.
You've handled worse. You'll handle this too. The court-martial was scheduled for a Thursday morning in a sterile conference room that felt more like a corporate office than a military tribunal. Maya arrived in her service dress uniform, medals polished, shoes shined, looking every inch the professional operator she was. Vandenberg was already there, sitting behind the defense table in his uniform, no medals, rank insignia removed. He was on crutches, his legs still in a cast. When Maya walked in, his eyes tracked her with naked hatred. She didn't look away, didn't flinch, just took her seat and waited. The tribunal consisted of 5 officers, ranging from commander to captain. They listened to the evidence with expressions that grew progressively colder as the case unfolded. The prosecution played the radio recordings. Vandenberg's voice filled the room, dripping with contempt and barely concealed malice. The tribunal heard him give false coordinates, heard him ignore Commander Chen's orders, heard him trigger the rock slide that nearly killed everyone. Then came the testimony. Davis went first. He was calm, factual, devastating. He described the planning session where Vandenberg deliberately excluded Maya, the equipment sabotage, the false map coordinates, the harassment campaign. At what point did you realize what was happening? The prosecutor asked.
When she corrected the navigation error and arrived at Checkpoint Bravo before we did, Davis said. She'd been given bad coordinates, recognized it, and navigated correctly anyway. That's when I understood this wasn't training. It was sabotage.
Why didn't you report it then?
Davis's jaw tightened. Because I was a coward. Because Vandenberg was my team leader, and I didn't want to go against him. Because I told myself it wasn't my problem.
He looked directly at Vandenberg.
I was wrong. It was my problem, and I should have spoken up sooner.
The other Rangers testified. One by one, they corroborated Maya's account, adding details she hadn't known about. Conversations Vandenberg had with them about putting her in her place, orders to undermine her decisions, plans to make her fail spectacularly. Then it was Maya's turn. She walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat down. The prosecutor, a Marine lieutenant colonel, approached with a tablet. Petty Officer Reeves, in your own words, describe the events of the past 2 weeks. Maya took a breath. Then she talked. She described the comment about her sports bra in the hangar, the shower incident, the mess hall harassment, the CQB exercise where Vandenberg repeatedly overrode her authority, the SERE training where he gave her faulty equipment and false coordinates. She described the moment she realized he'd sent her on a route designed to get her lost, the decision to correct the navigation anyway, the confrontation when she arrived early. She described the emergency call, the canyon, the rock slide, the choice to save Vandenberg's life even after everything he'd done. Why did you save him? The prosecutor asked. Because it was the right thing to do. Because my job isn't contingent on whether someone likes me or treats me well. It's contingent on whether I can execute the mission. And the mission was to save lives. Did you at any point consider leaving Staff Sergeant Vandenberg behind? Maya met the prosecutor's eyes.
No, sir. Not for a second.
The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Vandenberg's defense attorney, a tired-looking Navy lieutenant, stood up. Petty Officer Reeves, isn't it true that SEAL training is intentionally harsh? That instructors are meant to push candidates to their breaking point? Yes, sir. Then how do you differentiate between harsh but appropriate training and what you're calling harassment? Maya didn't hesitate. Harsh training is designed to build competence and resilience. It's applied equally to all candidates. It has clear objectives and measurable outcomes. What Staff Sergeant Vandenberg did was designed to make me fail. It was applied only to me, and the objectives were personal, not professional. How can you be certain of his motives? Because he told me, sir, on multiple occasions. He said I didn't belong in special operations. He said I was a diversity hire. He said my qualifications were political, not earned. Those aren't the words of an instructor trying to build a better operator. Those are the words of someone trying to force me out. The defense attorney shifted tactics. You claim Staff Sergeant Vandenberg gave you false navigation coordinates. Isn't it possible you simply misread the map? No, sir. How can you be so certain? Because I have the map he gave me. The map from the official briefing packet, and GPS data from the emergency beacon. All three show different coordinates. His map was altered, deliberately. Do you have proof of this alteration? The prosecutor stood up. The defense has already been provided with copies of all three maps, GPS logs, and a forensic analysis showing the alterations were made after the official briefing. This has been entered into evidence as Exhibit G. The defense attorney sat down. The tribunal deliberated for 40 minutes. When they returned, the senior officer, a Navy captain named Bradford, stood to deliver the verdict. Staff Sergeant Richard Vandenberg, this tribunal finds you guilty on all charges. Conduct unbecoming an officer, disobeying direct orders, reckless endangerment, sexual harassment, falsification of official documents, creating a hostile work environment. Vandenberg's face went from red to white. Bradford continued, his voice hard as iron. You have disgraced your uniform, endangered the lives of personnel under your command, and systematically attempted to destroy the career of a highly qualified operator based solely on her gender. This tribunal has rarely seen such a clear-cut case of professional misconduct. He paused, letting that sink in. You are hereby dishonorably discharged from the United States Army, effective immediately. All rank, pay, and benefits are forfeit. You will serve 6 years in a military prison, followed by lifetime probation. Upon completion of your sentence, civilian charges for reckless endangerment will be pursued by local authorities. Vandenberg stood up, his crutches clattering. This is bullshit! She's the one who— Sit down! Bradford's voice cracked like a whip. You've said enough. More than enough. Your victim saved your life while you were busy trying to destroy hers. If you had an ounce of honor, you'd be thanking her instead of making excuses. The MPs moved forward, flanking Vandenberg. As they escorted him out, he looked at Maya one last time. His expression was pure venom. Maya looked back with no expression at all. When the door closed behind him, Bradford turned to Maya. Petty Officer Reeves, please approach. She stood, walked to the front of the room. On behalf of this tribunal and the United States Navy, I want to apologize. You should never have been put in this position. The system failed you, and for that, we are sorry. He extended his hand. Your conduct throughout this ordeal has been exemplary. You represent the very best of what we hope to build in our special operations community. Maya shook his hand, her throat tight. Thank you, sir. Dismissed.
She walked out of that conference room and found the hallway full of people. Chief Hunt, Commander Chen, Davis and the other Rangers, Morrison and Collins, other operators she barely knew but who'd come anyway.
They parted to let her through, and as she passed, they came to attention. A hallway full of warriors paying respect to one of their own. Maya made it to her quarters before the tears started. She sat on her bunk, still in her dress uniform, and cried for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Not from sadness, not from relief, from the sheer, overwhelming weight of finally being believed. A knock on her door. She wiped her eyes. "Come in." It was Davis. He looked uncomfortable, his hands shoved in his pockets. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For real this time. Not just for following Vandenberg. For being part of the problem. For making you fight alone when you should have had backup from day one." "You testified," Maya said. "That took courage." "Courage would have been speaking up sooner. What I did was basic human decency, and it was about 5 days too late." He met her eyes. "I'm requesting a transfer to SEAL training, if they'll have me." Maya blinked. "You're leaving the Rangers?" "I can't stay with a unit that let this happen, that stayed quiet while one of their own tried to destroy someone who didn't deserve it. I want to be part of something better. And from what I saw in that canyon, what you guys do is better." "BUD/S is going to break you." "Good. I deserve to be broken and rebuilt into something that doesn't stand by while someone gets torn down." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, you're the best operator I've ever worked with. And I've worked with some of the best." After he left, Maya sat alone with her thoughts and her tears and the quiet knowledge that something had shifted, not just in her career, in the whole system. Tomorrow, Commander Chen would announce new anti-harassment protocols for all joint training programs. Next week, Davis's testimony would be used in leadership courses across the Navy as a case study in moral courage. Next month, 3 of the women from Morrison's folder would file their own complaints, emboldened by Maya's success. Change was coming. Slow, painful, but real. And Maya had been the catalyst. She changed out of her dress uniform, put on running clothes, and went outside. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. She started running, her feet finding their rhythm, her breathing settling into the familiar pattern. She ran past the obstacle course where Vandenberg had mocked her endurance, past the shoot house where he'd sabotaged the exercise, past the airfield where this had all begun. And with every step, she felt lighter. The promotion ceremony happened 3 weeks after the court-martial, on a Tuesday morning that felt like any other, until Commander Chen called Maya into his office and told her to put on her dress uniform. "Why, sir?" "Just do it, petty officer. Be back here at 1000 hours." She arrived at 0955 to find the entire command staff assembled in the conference room. Chief Hunt was there in his dress blues, Captain Bradford from the tribunal, Morrison and Collins, and at least 30 other operators she'd trained with, worked with, or never spoken to but who'd apparently decided this was worth witnessing. Chen stood at the front with a small velvet box. "Petty Officer First Class Maya Reeves, front and center." Maya's stomach dropped. She walked forward, came to attention. Chen opened the box. Inside was the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the highest non-combat decoration for heroism. Gold star, red and blue ribbon, the kind of medal most operators never saw in an entire career. "For heroism and life-saving actions during a training exercise that became a real-world emergency," Chen read from a citation. "Petty Officer Reeves demonstrated exceptional courage, tactical brilliance,
and unwavering professionalism under extreme circumstances.
Her actions directly resulted in the survival of 8 personnel and 1 civilian. Her conduct reflects the highest traditions of the United States Navy and the Special Operations community. He pinned the medal on her chest. Then he picked up another item, a set of anchors. Chief Petty Officer insignia. Additionally, by order of the Commander of Naval Special Warfare, you are hereby promoted to Chief Petty Officer, effective immediately. This promotion is being made 2 years ahead of normal timeline in recognition of your exemplary service and leadership under fire. The room erupted in applause. Maya stood there, stunned, feeling the weight of the new rank on her collar and the medal on her chest. Hunt was the first to shake her hand. "Congratulations, Chief. You earned it." "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just keep doing what you do." The celebration lasted an hour before people filtered back to their duties. Maya was changing out of her dress uniform when Morrison knocked on her door. "Got a minute, Chief?" The new rank felt strange coming from a captain's mouth. "Yes, ma'am." Morrison held out a folder. "This is the preliminary policy proposal based on your case. I wanted you to see it before it goes to the Admiral." Maya opened the folder. Inside was a 40-page document detailing new anti-harassment protocols, mandatory bystander intervention training, streamlined reporting procedures, and protections against retaliation. "This is comprehensive." "It has to be. Your case exposed systematic failures at every level. We need systematic solutions." Morrison sat down. "But I'll be honest with you. Policy is only as good as the people implementing it. We need cultural change, and that's harder." "How do you change culture?" "You show people a better way. You lead by example. You become the standard instead of the exception." Morrison looked at her carefully. "Which brings me to why I'm really here. How would you feel about becoming a SEAL qualification training instructor?" Maya set down the folder. "Ma'am?" "We need someone to teach the next generation how to do this right. Someone who's lived it, survived it, and came out the other side with their integrity intact. Someone who can look a class full of candidates in the eye and say, 'I know what you're going through, and here's how to handle it.'" "I'm 28. Most instructors have 15 years of experience." "Most instructors haven't done what you've done. Age isn't the qualification here. Character is." Morrison stood up. "Think about it. No pressure. But we need people like you in leadership positions, and we need them now." After Morrison left, Maya sat alone with the policy proposal and the weight of the decision. Teaching meant coming off the operational tempo, meant trading missions for classrooms, meant facing her own trauma every single day by helping others navigate theirs. It also meant making sure the next woman who walked through BUD/S didn't have to fight the same battles Maya had. She made her decision before the door closed behind Morrison. The offer came through official channels 2 days later. Maya accepted it immediately. 6 months later, she stood in front of her first SEAL qualification training class as the primary instructor for the land warfare phase. 200 candidates stared back at her. 8 of them were women. "My name is Chief Petty Officer Maya Reeves," she said, her voice carrying across the grinder. "Some of you know who I am. Some of you have heard the stories. Some of you are wondering if the stories are true." She paused, let the silence build. "Here's what you need to know. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to make this easy. I'm here to teach you how to stay alive in the worst situations imaginable, and how to bring your teammates home when everything goes wrong." She walked along the front row, making eye contact. "Over the next 10 weeks, some of you are going to quit. That's fine. This isn't for everyone. Some of you are going to get injured. That happens. Some of you are going to face challenges that feel impossible, physically,
mentally, emotionally. Those challenges are designed to find your breaking point. She stopped in front of one of the female candidates, a young woman who couldn't have been more than 22. Some of you are going to face an additional challenge. You're going to deal with people who think you don't belong here, who think you're too weak, too soft, too female to do this job. They're wrong. But they're also loud, and they're persistent, and they will test you in ways that have nothing to do with your actual capabilities. The young woman's jaw tightened. Maya recognized that expression. She'd worn it herself. When that happens, Maya continued, you have 3 choices. Let their words define you, let their words enrage you, or let their words reveal them. She turned to face the entire class. I chose the 3rd option. I became so undeniably competent that their bias became irrelevant, not because it was fair, not because it was right, but because it worked. She walked back to the center. Your job is to become so skilled, so professional, so unquestionably capable that when someone questions whether you belong here, the answer is obvious to everyone watching. Not to the person asking, they might never change their mind, but to the people who matter. Your teammates, your commanders, yourself. A hand went up, one of the male candidates, built like a linebacker. Chief, what if the bias comes from an instructor, someone in a position of authority? Maya met his eyes. Document everything. Report through proper channels, and if those channels fail, find someone who will listen. Because the system isn't perfect, but it's better than it was, and it's getting better because people are willing to speak up. She let that settle over the class. One more thing. Some of you are going to see your classmates struggling. Maybe they're slower on a run. Maybe they're struggling with a technical skill. Maybe they're dealing with harassment you can't see. When that happens, you have a choice. You can stand by and let it happen, or you can step up and support your teammate. She thought of Davis, of his late but crucial testimony. The easy thing is to stay quiet, to tell yourself it's not your problem, to protect yourself by not getting involved. But warriors don't do the easy thing. Warriors do the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She dismissed the class. As they filed out, the young woman she'd made eye contact with approached. Chief Reeves, I'm Seaman Recruit Sarah Chen. I just wanted to say thank you for being here, for making it possible. I didn't make it possible, Chen. The women who came before me did. I just kept the door open a little wider. Will you tell me about it sometime? About what happened? Maya considered that. Maybe, when you graduate, if you make it that far. I'll make it, Chief. Then I'll tell you everything. Chen left with fire in her eyes, and Maya felt something shift in her chest. This was why she'd taken the instructor position. Not for medals, not for recognition. For this moment, where she could look a young woman in the eye and say, without words, I survived, and so will you. 3 months into her teaching rotation, Maya got an unexpected visitor during her office hours. Corporal Jamie Davis walked in wearing Navy working uniform, looking nervous and determined in equal measure. Chen? No, wait, Davis. What are you doing here? It's Seaman Recruit Davis now, Chief. I'm in week 3 of Phase 1. He stood at attention. I wanted to report to you formally, since you were part of why I'm here. At ease, Davis. Sit down. He sat, but his posture stayed rigid. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you think I can do this? After everything that happened, after how long I stayed quiet, do I deserve to be here? Maya leaned back in her chair. You're asking the wrong question.
What's the right question?
Not whether you deserve to be here. Whether you're willing to do the work to earn it. Deserve is past tense. Earn is present tense.
Davis absorbed that. I want to earn it. I need to earn it. Because what I saw in that canyon, what you did, how you led, that's who I want to be, not who I was.
Then you'll make it. Not because of what happened, in spite of it. But you have to leave it behind. You can't carry guilt through this program. It'll drown you.
How do I leave it behind?
You don't. You use it.
Every time you want to quit, you remember why you're here. Every time it gets hard, you think about the person you want to become. And when you see someone else struggling, you do what you didn't do for me. You speak up immediately. Davis nodded slowly.
I can do that.
Good. Now get out of my office. You've got Hell Week in 3 months, and you look soft. He grinned, saluted, and left. Maya watched him go and felt a satisfaction deeper than any mission completion. She was building something here. Not just training operators. Building a culture where people like Davis could recognize their mistakes and fix them. Where people like Chen could see themselves succeeding. Where the next woman wouldn't have to fight as hard as Maya had. The real twist came during a mandatory staff meeting 8 months into her instructor rotation. Captain Bradford, who'd led the tribunal, stood at the front with an announcement that changed everything. As of next month, Naval Special Warfare is implementing a new pilot program. Every SEAL training class will include a dedicated harassment prevention officer embedded in the instructor cadre. Someone whose sole job is to identify and address discrimination before it becomes systemic. The room stirred. Some instructors looked pleased, others looked skeptical. The first HPO will be Chief Petty Officer Reeves. Maya's head snapped up.
Sir, I'm already a land warfare instructor.
You'll maintain that role, but you'll also serve as the point person for any candidates who experience harassment, bias, or discrimination. You'll have direct authority to investigate incidents and recommend disciplinary action. You'll report directly to me, outside the normal chain of command. Maya stood up.
Sir, with respect, this is going to make me a target. Every instructor who thinks the standards are being lowered is going to blame me for it.
Yes, they will. And you're going to prove them wrong, just like you've been doing for the past 5 years. Bradford's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't fair, Chief. I know you've already fought this battle once. But we need someone who understands both sides, someone who's been through the training and survived the system trying to break her. That's you. Maya looked around the room. Some instructors were nodding. Others were stone-faced. One, a master chief she'd never particularly liked, looked actively hostile.
Can I think about it, sir?
No. You're the most qualified person for this job, and we need you in it starting next month. Dismissed. After the meeting, Chief Hunt found her in the hallway. You look like someone just handed you a live grenade.
That's exactly what they did. Except the grenade has cultural change written on it, and everyone's watching to see if I can defuse it without blowing up my career.
You can.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I do. Because you've already done harder things than this. You survived Vandenberg. You saved lives while he was trying to destroy yours. You testified in court-martial proceedings and helped send a toxic leader to prison. This? Hunt gestured at the meeting room. This is just the next phase of the same mission.
What if I fail?
Then you fail forward. You document what doesn't work, you adapt, and you try again. That's what good operators do.
Maya leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of the new responsibility settling onto shoulders that already carried enough. "Chief, did anyone tell you that you give terrible pep talks?" "All the time. Hasn't stopped me yet." The harassment prevention officer role turned out to be exactly as difficult as Maya had predicted.
Within the first month, she fielded complaints ranging from legitimate concerns about discriminatory treatment to complaints from male candidates who felt female candidates were receiving preferential treatment during identical training evolutions. She investigated everything, documented everything, made recommendations that sometimes got instructors disciplined and sometimes got candidates dropped for filing false reports. She made enemies. She also made the training environment measurably safer. By month 6, the data was undeniable. Harassment incidents were down 40%. Female candidate retention was up 30%. And perhaps most importantly, male candidates were starting to step up when they witnessed bias instead of staying silent. Davis was one of them. Maya heard about it secondhand from another instructor. "Your boy Davis shut down a harassment situation yesterday. 2 of his classmates were making comments about one of the female candidates during a ruck march." Davis got in their faces, told them they were violating core values and embarrassing the teams, and reported them to the instructor. Both candidates are facing discipline. Maya felt pride swell in her chest. "He's not my boy. He's just a SEAL candidate doing the right thing." "Yeah, but you're why he knows what the right thing looks like. That's leadership, Chief." 1 year after Vandenberg's court-martial, Maya got a call from an unknown number. "Chief Reeves, this is Emily Patterson. I don't know if you remember me. I remember you, Emily. How are you?" "I'm good, really good. I'm calling because I'm in San Diego for an interview at UCSD Medical School, and I was hoping I could buy you coffee, if you have time." They met at a small cafe near the base. Emily looked healthy, vibrant, completely different from the dying girl on the cliff ledge. She also looked nervous. "I wanted to thank you in person," Emily said after they ordered. "Not just for saving my life, but for... I don't know how to say this without it sounding dramatic." "Try anyway." "For showing me what strength looks like. Real strength, not the performative kind. You were so calm up there on that ledge, so certain. I was dying, terrified, and you just handled it, like it was a problem you knew how to solve." Maya sipped her coffee. "It was a problem I knew how to solve. That's the result of training, not some innate quality." "Maybe, but the way you did it, the professionalism, the competence without arrogance, that changed how I saw myself, how I saw what women could do in high-pressure fields." Emily pulled out a folder. "I wrote my medical school admissions essay about that day. I wanted you to have a copy." Maya read it while Emily waited. The essay was beautifully written, describing the rescue, the aftermath, and how witnessing Maya's competence had inspired Emily to pursue emergency medicine. The final paragraph made Maya's throat tight. "Chief Petty Officer Reeves saved my life with medical skills, climbing expertise, and tactical leadership. But what I'll never forget is this. The men who mocked her for wearing a sports bra while training later watched her climb 60 feet of rock face in that same bra to save their leader's life. She didn't do it for glory. She didn't do it to prove a point. She did it because it was her job. That's the definition of a professional. And that's who I want to be." Maya set down the essay. "You're going to be an excellent doctor, Emily. Because of you. No, because you're smart, driven, and you survived a rattlesnake bite through sheer stubbornness. I just provided the technical assist." Emily smiled. "That's exactly what I mean. You never take credit. You just do the work." After Emily left, Maya sat in the cafe with the essay in her hands and realized something profound. She'd spent so much time focused on surviving, on proving herself, on fighting for her place, that she'd never considered the ripple effects. But they were there. Davis becoming a better man. Chen and the other female candidates having a path that was slightly less brutal than Maya's had been. Emily choosing emergency medicine. Policy changes spreading through the entire military. She hadn't just survived. She'd changed things. The final validation came during a graduation ceremony 18 months after Vandenberg's court-martial. Maya stood before 200 SEAL candidates, including Davis, who'd made it through with distinction, and Chen, who'd earned top marks in her class. Commander Chen had asked Maya to give the keynote address. She'd almost refused. Public speaking wasn't her strength, but Hunt had talked her into it. "Tell them what you wished someone had told you," he'd said. "That's all they need to hear." So Maya stood at the podium, looking at the sea of faces, and spoke from the heart. "On my second day of SEAL training, an instructor told me I didn't belong here. He said women weren't built for this work. He was wrong about the reason, not because women are built the same as men, but because this job isn't about your build. It's about your will." The graduates listened in absolute silence. "Some of you have faced people who think like that instructor. Some have faced worse. When that happens, you have choices. Let their words define you. Let their words enrage you. Or let their words reveal them." She told them about Vandenberg without using his name, about the harassment, the sabotage, the canyon, the choice to save his life anyway. "I chose competence over confrontation, not because it was fair, not because it was easy, but because it worked. My skills spoke louder than his bias. My professionalism defeated his prejudice. Not instantly, not cleanly, but completely." She looked directly at the female graduates. "When someone tells you that you don't belong here, remember this. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You just need to do the job better than they can. And then do it again. And again. Until the only voice that matters is your own, telling you, 'I earned this. I belong here. And I'm not done yet.'" She stepped back from the podium. The applause started slowly, then built into something that sounded like thunder. After the ceremony, Davis approached in his dress uniform, the trident newly pinned to his chest. "Thank you, Chief, for everything." "You earned that trident, Davis. I didn't give it to you." "No, but you showed me what it meant to really earn it. To be something more than just physically capable. To have character that matches your capabilities." He extended his hand. "I'm requesting assignment to your old team, if they'll have me." "They will. You're ready." Chen was next, her trident gleaming, her eyes bright with tears she was too stubborn to let fall. "I made it, Chief." "You did. Now comes the hard part. Being a SEAL is harder than becoming one." "I know. But at least now I know it's possible. Because you showed me." Maya watched them walk away, two warriors she'd helped shape, heading into careers that would be hard and dangerous, and absolutely worth it. She thought about Vandenberg, serving year 2 of his prison sentence, his career and reputation destroyed. She thought about the 12 women from Morrison's folder, 6 of whom had now filed their own complaints and won their own tribunals. She thought about the policy changes spreading through the military, the new harassment prevention protocols, the cultural shifts happening slowly but measurably. And she thought about that day in the equipment hangar when Vandenberg had sneered at her sports bra and she'd said nothing, just kept working. That moment had been the beginning. Not of the harassment, that had existed long before, but of her decision to fight back, not with anger, but with excellence. Chief Hunt found her standing alone after the ceremony, watching the new SEALs celebrate with their families. "You did good, kid." "I didn't do anything.
They earned it themselves. You gave them a path. That's not nothing. Maya turned to face him. Remember when you told me to get comfortable with constantly proving myself or get out? Yeah. I never got comfortable with it. But I got strategic with it. I stopped seeing it as an obstacle and started seeing it as an opportunity to set the standard so high that the next woman doesn't have to fight as hard. Mission accomplished, Chief. No, mission ongoing. This doesn't end.
There will always be another Vandenberg, another system to challenge, another battle to fight. The work isn't done.
And it's a good thing you're not done either.
Hunt walked away, leaving Maya standing in the California sun, watching the future of naval special warfare celebrate their achievement. She thought about the sports bra comment that had started everything, how Vandenberg had used it to demean her, how she'd worn the same bra while climbing a cliff to save his life, how it had become a symbol, not of weakness or sexuality or anything Vandenberg had intended, but of competence in the face of contempt. Someone had even started an unofficial tradition. Female candidates at BUD/S now bought bright-colored sports bras and wore them during training. Not as a statement, just as a reminder, your uniform doesn't determine your capability. Maya smiled, thinking about how thoroughly Vandenberg's weapon had backfired. She went back to her office, sat down at her desk, and pulled up the next training schedule. 40 new candidates starting next month, 3 of them women. All of them about to discover that the path was hard but possible, brutal but navigable, designed to find their breaking point, but also to prove they could push past it. And she would be there, watching, guiding, ensuring that when they faced their Vandenberg moment, and they would, because progress was slow and bias was stubborn, they'd have what she hadn't had. Backup, support, a system that believed them. She thought about writing to Vandenberg, to tell him that his hatred had backfired so completely that he'd become the catalyst for exactly the change he'd tried to prevent. But that would give him too much credit. He hadn't been a catalyst. He'd just been an obstacle, one she'd climbed over on her way to becoming exactly who she was meant to be. She deleted the thought and got back to work, because that's what professionals do. They don't waste time on revenge or vindication. They just do the job perfectly, consistently, without apology. Strength isn't the power to win a fight. It's the discipline to choose which fights are worth winning, and the courage to let your competence speak louder than their doubt.